Neville Goddard Lecture, The Wonder-Working Power of Attachment, February 3rd, 1969. I hope you will find this subject tonight practical, very practical. It is the wonder-working power of attachment. To understand it, let us go first to the greatest book in the world, the Bible. We are told in the book of Joshua that wherever the sole of your foot shall tread upon, I have given to you. Joshua 5:3. Now you must understand who Joshua is if you would apply this principle. The word Joshua is the Hebrew form of the word Jesus, and Jesus is Jehovah. Same root, Yod-Heval. The word means Jehovah is salvation, or Jehovah will save, or Jehovah saves. So really, it is all to himself. It's not one being promising another. It's one being promising himself. God needs the dance of life, and his dancers are also himself. We are the dancers, but we are also God. God's name and himself are one. His eternal name is I Am. Could you be any place in this world and not know that you are? Before you know who you are, or what you are, or where you are, you do know that you are. So without voicing it, you're saying, I am. That's God. Is there any place where God is not? There is no place where he is not, and there is nothing that he is not. If there is something, then it would have to be God. Now, all things by a law divine in one another's being mingle. If you will accept this interpenetration seriously, and I'm speaking from experience, there are possibilities that are fabulous. You penetrate my brain. Not only you, but everything in the world. My apartment in this city seems, well, miles away. New York City, 3,000 miles away. Where I was born, 5,000 miles away. I'm not denying that they are not here, but if I accept interpenetration, then they're also in my brain. So if I desire to go tonight to where I was born, I may not have the means, I may not have the time. Unnumbered things may stand between me and my desire. But if I accept interpenetration, I could, while standing here, be in my island home of Barbados. I could enter into this image in my imagination, approaching it on the fiery chariot of my contemplative thought. I've done it. I do not do it lightly anymore, because I know from experience if I do it, having done it, I may now lose the desire, but I will be compelled to make the journey. Conditions will so arrange themselves, I will be compelled to make that journey. So I do not treat it lightly. Now, this is not just a journey in space, but anything in this world that you desire. I don't care what it is, it now penetrates your brain, and it's right here, where you are, wherever you are. I am not denying that Barbados is in what is called the outer world, but I know from my own experience that I really am. The being that I really am is all imagination. I also know that God is man and exists in us and we in him, that the eternal body of man is the imagination, and that is God himself. Blake, Anot, Berkeley, Laocoon. If I, in imagination, will enter into any image in this world that I desire, if I will actually enter into it, there is no power in the world that can stop it from becoming an objective fact in my world. No power. Now, what is the secret that makes it so? Reality is controlled by feeling. You find this in the greatest book in the world, in the 27th chapter of the book of Genesis. All of these are states spoken of as individuals in Scripture, but they are states of consciousness, all contained within you. The central character here is Isaac, and here he has two sons, one called Esau, clothed in the outer world. This room is Esau, and everything in my objective world is Esau. He has a second son. His name is Jacob. All subjective states, my longings, my wishes, my desires, that's Jacob. Now he turns to Jacob, who has clothed himself to disguise himself as an objective fact, and comes to his father, and the drama unfolds within me. the father said to him, "Come near that I may feel you, my son, whether you are really Esau or not." Then he said to him, "Are you really Esau?" And Jacob answered, "I am." Put yourself into a state that is subjective, completely subjective, and then gather the mood that would be yours if it were objective fact. What would the feeling be like if it were really objective? How would you feel? And while clothed in that state, giving it all the sensory vividness you can possibly muster, all the tones of reality, making it as real as you possibly can, you feel it and deceive yourself into the belief that the image into which you entered is really objective. Well, when he opened up his eyes, the man was blind, and we are told that all of a sudden the objective world came back. Esau came back from the hunt, and Jacob was blessed. He discovered he was self-deceived, but he could not take back the blessing that he gave to the subjective state. He was self-deceived. He did it purposely, and then he opened his eyes upon the objective world, and it denied the reality of what he had done. But he still could not bring it back. It's on its way. It's going to supplant. The word Jacob means supplant. It's going to supplant the objective fact that denies its existence. Then it becomes in turn Esau, and we go through life playing the part of you being Isaac with your two sons, an objective fact and a subjective feeling, unreality. But you enter into the image of the subjective state. Now this is how I do it. I've done it unnumbered times. I've told it in my books how I do it, and told how others did it. I could stand here and shut out the world, and the easiest thing to do is to close my eyes so that I don't see. Because if I keep the eyes open, well then, you remind me that I really am in this room, and you are present, and you are fact. But I don't want this, so I simply begin with the story of Isaac. He is blind. Well, to be blind is simply to shut the eyes, so you don't see the outer world. And so Isaac is blind. Then while in this state, he imagines himself to be in the state that he desires to be in, and he feels himself into that state until that state becomes real to him. It seems real. He's in it. And then with the inner eye, he sees the world as he would see it if it were true. How would I see the world if it were true? Well, he begins to visualize his world and senses it to be real, and the dream takes on its tones of reality, when to him he reaches a point of what I call relief. For of all the pleasures of the world, relief is the most keenly felt. When I feel it's done, I open my eyes, and instantly Esau, the outer world, returns and tries to persuade me that what I did is unreal. But having done it time and time again, it may seem unreal at the moment, but it is moving towards objective fulfillment, and no power in the world can stop it. So this is what I mean by this wonderful wonder-working power. It's all within your own wonderful human imagination, for that is God. This promise to Joshua is God's promise to himself. There is no one to play the part but God. He conceived a poem, a beautiful poem, and no one to play it. They existed only for him, not for themselves. And so God, the director, the author of the poem, simply became the dancer's himself. And his name is I Am. That's God's name. That is my name forever and forever. And for all generations I will be known only as I Am. Exodus 3:13-15. Before I say I am John or Neville or Peter, or a man or a woman, I simply am. Now I clothe myself with what I would like to be. Rich, poor, known, unknown, anything in this world. Simply clothe yourself in it and feel as you would feel if it were true, and then drop it. Open your eyes upon an objective world that denies the reality of what you have done. It doesn't matter. As you are told in Scripture, I have blessed you and I cannot take back my blessing. I felt that which was subjective to be objective, and it seemed to me to be real, and so I gave him a blessing. Now I cannot take it back. So Esau went out disappointed. The outer world that is now is going to be supplanted. He's disappointed that it will be supplanted by something other than itself. His brother, the subjective state, will clothe itself in objectivity and take the place. If you're poor and you've clothed yourself in the feeling of being secure, what feels secure to me, it comes into your world and removes the objective insecurity. Well, the insecurity vanishes, disappointed that it didn't get the blessing to remain alive forever and forever. All these are states within you, all states of consciousness. Everything in this world is God made visible. There's nothing but God. There's no room for anything but God. So, all things by this law divine in one another's being mingle. Go to the moon, as we have just circled it, is remote in space, and yet it penetrates my brain, and therefore it is there in my brain. Now I can't take you with me and show you the earth from the moon, but you can do it to yourself. You can be in any point in space that you can conceive and imagine yourself to be there and view the world as you would see it from that point in space. When I was actually denied freedom in the army, I did not appeal. I couldn't appeal because the laws of Caesar denied my right to appeal beyond my commanding officer. And so I couldn't appeal it, but I could by this principle. So he said, disapproved, and that was final in the world of Caesar. But it wasn't final in the world of God, and I simply assumed that very day that I was honorably discharged and in my apartment in New York City. That's 2,000 miles away from Camp Polk, Louisiana. So I gave it feeling. I, first of all, slept on this little cot in the barracks, but I assumed that I was on my own wonderful, comfortable bed, and I was not then on furlough. I made that very, very clear to my mind's eye that I was honorably discharged and now once more a civilian. Then I felt the little cot. I felt it to be my bed. My wife is on the other bed in my imagination. My little girl is in her bed. Then I got off the bed and I went to the window and looked out upon a familiar scene that could only be seen from my bedroom window. And that was the Holly Apartments across the way on Washington Square. I imagined I looked to 6th Avenue. I imagined I looked to Washington Square, and then I walked through my familiar scenery, my living room, my dining room, kitchen, everything. Then I retired, went back to bed, got back in bed, and slept in my bed in New York City as though it were fact. Now, a mystical experience happened that morning, but it need not happen. The chances are it will happen that you will not bring it back to consciousness. But in my case it happened. I saw a sheet of paper, and I saw a hand from here down, and it held a pen. It scratched out the word disapproved from this sheet of paper that resembled the application that I had made that day. Then it wrote in a very bold way, approved. Then the voice spoke to me. It was my own voice, and the voice said, "That which I have done. Do nothing." Then I woke in this world, and it's 4 a.m. So I did nothing, but 9 days later, the same one who disapproved my application called me in, and I was that day honorably discharged from the army, and I did nothing. I knew exactly what I had done, and it was moving towards its objective confirmation, and no power in the world could have stopped it. The same man who disapproved it was the man who approved it 9 days later, without further application on my part. I was called into his presence, and that was it. I can multiply these beyond number, not only in my own case, but those who believed it, as I told the story. So I tell you, everything is possible to the individual if he knows who he is. You are the Joshua of that 5th book in the Bible. And Joshua is the Jesus of the New Testament. And Jesus of the New Testament is the Jehovah of the Old Testament, and that Jehovah, who is Joshua, who is Jesus, is your own wonderful human imagination. When you say I am, that is he. But as long as you see him as something other than yourself outside to whom you turn and pray, well then, you will not apply this principle. You simply give up all foreign gods, all idols, and come down to the one and only God, and his name is I am. But if you say Jesus, trained as I was, born and raised in a Christian faith, and I still call myself Christian, I am a Christian. Well, if I think of Jesus as I was trained, he's on the outside. I had to have this revelation and then to put it to the test and prove it to know who Jesus really is. And there never was another Jesus. There never was another Joshua. There never was another Jehovah. There's no place in this world for one other than God. He is actually the director of the great dance of life, and all the dancers are himself. Whether you play the part of a bum, that's God dancing the part of the bum. But you need not play the part of a bum. If you play the part of a billionaire, that's God dancing to the tune of billions. If you play the part of anything, that's God. And there's nothing but God. Now, nothing can act but where it is, only where it is. But where is it? If I am God, and I know that we are God, where would you go that God is not? If you make your bed in hell, God is there. If you make it in heaven, God is there. So where could I go that God is not? Everything penetrates me, but everything. Therefore I don't have to go any place. It's all here. I simply adjust within myself and move from one state to another state. I don't have to travel to go to Barbados. I will go to Barbados if I make the adjustment here that I do know. It was a very cold September night in New York City, and I had brought out my book, Your Faith is Your Fortune, and the usual crowd, usually in excess of 1,000. I gave 3 lectures a week on Wednesdays, Fridays, and Sundays, Sunday nights. There was no charge, just a voluntary offering, so naturally there was no place big enough. I rented a church just off Times Square that sat about 1,100, and it was always crowded. But this night, because of the snow, 12 or 14 inches of snow, people couldn't get through. And that night, we had not more than a 150 or 200, and it was my first book. In the true sense of the word, Your Faith is Your Fortune. Well, that night, maybe 50 copies were sold. I ran the presses on 5,000. That night, because of the cold and the snow, I said, oh, to be in Barbados, just to be with all the palm trees and the warmth and odors of the tropics. I went to bed in my place in New York City and felt myself in my mother's home in Barbados, even to the hearing of the moving of the leaves, that tropical atmosphere. I could smell it and I could see it, went sound asleep in that atmosphere. Then came a cable from my family saying that they knew I couldn't come because of the lack of transportation, for no planes in those days were flying, war was on, and Mother was dying, and if I could possibly make it, if any ship was coming, this would be the only time to see her. My wife and I sailed within 24 hours on the one ship that was moving out, the old Argentina. I had put myself in Barbados, and I had to fulfill it, and cancel all my other plans, for my wife and I had sent off a check to Maine to reserve accommodations for the summer. In fact, the year would be 41, not 42, and we had to cancel that because this was under compulsion, and I had to make the trip, so I don't treat it lightly. When I say you adjust yourself to a certain state and make that state real, you feel it, for reality really is controlled by feeling. The day will come that all we now think to be laws of nature and laws of science and laws of this, they will discover they aren't so at all. Feeling will modify or even void them, and they aren't so at all. So this wonder-working power is all within you, if you know who you are. If you're going to get down on your knees and pray to an external God, you don't know the power. If you are, whether you be in church or in a bar, doesn't make any difference. Wherever you are, God is there. And wherever God is, it's holy. Take off your shoes, for the place on which you stand is holy ground, no matter where you are. Let no one tell you because you're in church, you are in a more holy place than if you were actually now in what is called a brothel. For if you are there and you know who you are, then you know the holy place. And while standing there or sitting there, you can make an adjustment all within yourself, and then give it the tones of reality, give it all the sensory vividness that you can possibly muster. You feel it. If you can feel it and make it real, when you open your eyes upon the objective world and it denies the reality of what you just did subjectively, it doesn't matter. It's moving toward its fulfillment. Everything in this world works in this strange and wonderful way. Most of us who are doing it are totally unaware of what we are doing. As Blake said, I will never be certain that it was not some woman treading in the winepress who started the subtle change in men's minds, or that the passion because of which so many countries have been given to the sword did not begin in the mind of some shepherd boy, lighting up his eye for a moment before it ran upon its way. Someone in a dungeon feeling themselves, well, abused by society, and while they're there they simply imagine and carry on within themselves what they would like to happen to those who place them there. The ones who place them there think that now we are safe because he is in the dungeon, and they do not realize that that one in the dungeon is going to actually cause the convulsion of the world. Who knows who tonight is actually carrying on in their imagination? You can't stop them. Who in the world can stop them? Well, in their imaginations, they are simply conjuring numberless things that may be unlovely. But if I know there is only God, who in this world would I want to hurt? No man could ever in eternity shoot another. He could only shoot himself, who is God. There is no other. So I think I'll rub him out with a bullet. So I shoot him, and I think that's the end of it. It is only myself that I did it to. There is nothing but God. He is the one and only reality. This is the great Shema, the great confession of faith of Israel. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Deuteronomy 6:4. If you keep that in mind and never wander from it, you can't go wrong. If God is one, then I can't be another. I can't be another. It's the one body fragmented, because all use the same name. I say I am. So the whole vast world is God fragmented. And now the poem will become alive, and he gathers himself, not another, but this time they are living stones, not dead stones, all back into the same destroyed temple. For the body of God is the great temple. That one body deliberately shattered itself, and all became simply one body. Now as I gather it, one by one, back into the same body, the body becomes more luminous, more transparent, more creative, for God is ever expanding. People speak of an absolute what? This is an ever-expanding creative being that is God. So this wonder-working power is in your own wonderful human imagination. That is God. Man is all imagination, and God is man, and exists in us and we in him. The eternal body of man is the imagination, and that is God himself. Blake, Anot, to Berkeley/the Laocoon. If you are a Christian, you call it Jesus. If you are a Jew, you call it Jehovah. Well, these names are beautiful. Only tradition has it that they are other than yourself, and you bow before them and speak to them as idols. But if I could only supplant this and call it I am, my own wonderful human imagination, that's God. I can't get away from it. Where can I go that I am not imagining? Where in this world could I go and still not be one who is aware that I am? A little child comes into the world. It doesn't know who it is, where it is, or what it is, but it knows that it is. Well, that's what I mean by God, this wonderful awareness, this wonderful imagination. Now, if you take it seriously, and I do hope you will, this interpenetration, that I don't have to move from wherever I am to be where I want to be, because all things penetrate me. Everything in this world penetrates my brain. I can't see the sun if the sun didn't penetrate me. I cannot be aware of anything good, bad, or indifferent if it didn't penetrate my brain. Therefore, at once it is within and still seemingly in the outer world. But I don't have to make the journey in the outer world to get it. I simply adjust myself within myself. For no matter what I behold, though it appears without, it is within, in my imagination of which this world of mortality is but a shadow. Blake, Jerusalem, plate 71. So I simply adjust within myself. When I do it with feeling to the point of relief, where I can feel relief, it's a committed act and it's done. Then, in a way that no one knows, I'll be led across some bridge of incidents, some series of events that will lead me from where I was up to the fulfillment of what I did within myself. I don't have to consciously build the bridge. It simply unfolds in my world. I will meet a seeming stranger. I will meet others, and all will add up towards the fulfillment of that which I did within myself. On reflection, I may even give them the credit. Maybe they want to feel that they had much to do with my success. All right? Give them the credit. But I must always bear in mind, they are only playing the part they had to play, because all things by a law divine in one another's being mingle. So they penetrated me, I penetrate them, and we are one. If they can play the part necessary for that rung in the ladder that I must walk, well then, they'll play the part without their knowledge, without their consent. I don't think of them as individuals. I just think of what I want as an end. So if I would really steer my thoughts wisely in this world, I must be aware of my imaginal activity, or at any rate, the end which I am shaping. For without a purpose, without an end, there is no vital life. Vital life would be an impossibility, as impossible as to expect a light bulb to give off light when it is not attached to the power line. The power line is I am. Well, what am I? Well now, that is the light, as I name it. That is the bulb. Is it attached to the power line? Then it will become luminous. It will become objective in my world. So here this night, dream nobly. I don't care what the dream is, but make it a noble dream, because everyone in your world is yourself pushed out. Just take some noble concept of life that you would like to experience, and without asking anyone whether it's possible, without asking anyone to aid you in the fulfillment of it, adjust yourself within yourself, and you don't have to do anything. This very night, just simply move within yourself and feel it. Then give it reality. Feel what it would be like if it were true. Look at your world from this point, and then open your eyes upon the objective world that denies it. Doesn't matter. Read the story carefully when you read in the 27th chapter of the book of Genesis. But bear in mind who the characters are. All the characters of Scripture are personifications of eternal states, not persons as we are. They are states, eternal states, and learn to discriminate between the state and the occupant of the state. So Isaac is a state and his sons are states, and you always have the two sons, your present objective world and your present longing, which is subjective. Now the story is to put the subjective, if you really desire it, into the place of the objective by clothing yourself with the subjective and giving it tones of objective reality. Then it supplants. It's done. And you go from there to another state and another state, And one day you'll reach the state called Jesus. You will have the story that is described in the books of the Gospels, the 4 Gospels. That entire story from beginning to end will recreate itself within you, and then you'll know who you are. Everything said of him will be recreated within you, casting you in the central role. Not an observer, no spectator. You are the star in the drama from beginning to end. Then you will know who you are. The story is truer than those who talk about it and teach it, dream it is. Our priesthoods of the world haven't the slightest concept of the depth of this story and what it really is. One day, everyone is going to recreate within himself the story of Jesus, and then he will know who he is. And Jesus and Jehovah are one. And only this saves man from this world of Caesar. You are redeemed from within yourself by recreation at a certain moment in your life of the story of Christ Jesus. Now let us go into the silence. I know it's not the easiest thing in the world if you've never heard anything like it before, to suddenly accept this premise. But I tell you, I'm speaking from experience. I am not theorizing, and I'm not speculating. Question. That woman in the dungeon you were speaking of, imagining all these horrible things. Suppose there was someone on the outside knowing she was imagining these terrible things. Could the other person conquer? There might be a clash. Answer. Well, no, I would not think that there is such a person. But I'm not denying that there are such people in the world who feel resentful if any good happens to another. For instance, I can sympathize. It's so easy to sympathize. How many of us can empathize? You go into a bar and someone has lost a friend, or just notified that their son was killed in Vietnam, and the whole neighborhood comes to commiserate. They will simply show all their sympathy. The same family now, let it be known that they just won a sweepstake ticket for $500,000 and you find enmity. You don't find empathy, where they all want to run over and rejoice with her. But you say, why didn't it happen to me? Why should she get it? She smokes, she drinks, she carouses. I know things about her. All these things happen and no one empathizes with her, but they're willing to sympathize with her. So we haven't actually exercised within us that quality of empathy. So I wouldn't think of someone who may be doing it. Let me think only in terms of myself, because it's one anyway. I cannot deny the fact that this shattered being, fragmented as God is into unnumbered centers of awareness, that there are centers, though God not knowing who he is or she is, exercise it unknowingly and in an unlovely manner. Well, let me be concerned with what I am doing rather than what I think the other may be doing. Question, inaudible. To that degree could you not? Answer. Well, you simply would modify. But you can't stop someone from actually exercising their unlovely ideas. The other person would say, I only imagined it, therefore that isn't real, and they don't believe they are the cause of convulsions. I can't conceive that a drop of rain, that a vibration, that a patch of color is not a miracle produced by an imaginal activity. Everything is the result of an imaginal activity. God is all imagination, and so is man, because they are one. Look into the world and see if there is something that wasn't first imagined. The room is real, but before we call it reality, it was first imagined. The dress you wear, your hair, everything about you, was first only imagined, and then it became what we call reality, a proven fact. But it's preceded by a cause, and the cause was an imaginal act. Question, inaudible, concerning Esau and Jacob. Answer. The story is that they both were in the same womb together, that Rebekah felt a conflict within herself. Well, I am Rebekah, and I'm also Isaac, I am Jacob, and all the characters of the Bible. Well, There is a conflict in everyone who has a desire that is not realized. So what is now realized is his Esau. It's the objective world that's clothed in hair. He was covered in hair all over. Well, there's nothing more external to man than hair. You may not see it, but you put it under a magnifying glass. His whole body is a forest. Sometimes it becomes very obvious, and if he didn't have a human face, they'd think he was a monkey, because he's covered all over with hair. They said that Esau came out, and he was covered all over with hair. It's showing you that the external state is Esau. It comes first in a man's world. Then Jacob came after him, holding onto the heel of his brother. When Jacob came out, he was called Jacob because he was a supplanter. He supplanted his brother in the affections of God. God preferred Jacob to Esau. In fact, he said, "I hate Esau, but Jacob I have loved," as told us in the last book of the Old Testament. So here, the conflict is taking place within me. Two souls are locked within my breast. One to heaven doth aspire, and one to earth doth cling. The eternal story, whether you are taking the story of Faust, or you're taking the story of the Bible. But I prefer the story of the Bible, and Rebecca wonders, why does this thing take place within me? And then before they came out, judgment was passed upon them. That one who is not yet born I hate, and the other one who is not yet born I love. Well now, that, I go through the world with that. And remember, Isaac is blind. It's a very strange thing, but you'll find the same story repeating itself all the way through. So I have a desire, but the desire isn't realized. What is in its place, I would like to rub it out. A person tonight desires to be happily married, and they're not happily married. That's Esau. They'd like to be happily married. Well, if they were happily married, that other state would have to vanish. So they put themselves into a state of being blissfully happy, proud of the new name that they bear, and live in that state as though it were true. Well, they open their eyes upon the world, and what they see denies the reality of what they've just done. But let them be faithful to this subjective fact, which is not now an objective one, and tomorrow it will become the objective fact supplanting the present objective state of singleness or barrenness, or call it what you wish. This is the law, this is the principle. So all these are eternal states. I know that the entire Bible, as I've seen it in vision, is eternal states. And yet, when you see the state, it's a person. But you know in vision that it's a state. But you, as you see it, you are the power and you animate it. And you don't have to ask, who are you? The name is automatic. Abraham is Abraham, whether you see him or I see him. And yet, it's a state. Moses is a state. All these are states of consciousness that man has been taught to believe that they are secular history. It's not secular history. The Bible is simply supernatural from beginning to end. It is speaking of an entirely different world. But man has been taught to believe that all these things are part of the world of Caesar, and they're not. You and I were expelled from a garden of bliss purposely. In a state of innocence, we came out into the world of experience and we go back awakened imagination. Well now, the expulsion is to see ourselves in an external world where everything that is real is external to ourselves. And that had to be reversed so that eventually there's a complete reversal that takes place in the Bible. The first shall be last, the last first. So the first son is denied and the second son takes his place. And so something takes place within me when I'm born from above, and I see the reality is within and not without at all. So I am pushed out. Well, this is the pushed out state, where everything seems to be completely independent of my perception of it and external to myself, when eventually the whole thing is turned around and all that I behold, though it appears without, it is within. in my imagination, of which this world of mortality is but a shadow. So here, we are actually living Scripture, but Scripture is not what the world tells you that it is. And here, if this world isn't horrible enough when you think of all the nonsense that people imagine, and our priests who are supposed to be our teachers had to go and invent hell, it isn't bad enough, so they invent hell. Question: when is the Sabbath? In our imaginal activity, when do we rest? Answer: when do we rest? Having done it, you are not concerned. You know it must come to pass. Having done it, you simply drop it. If I plant in confidence a seed in my garden today, I don't pick it up tomorrow morning to see how it's coming. I leave it in confidence that it contains within itself a pattern of itself, and therefore it must come out, bearing witness of the nature of the seed I planted. So I don't dig it up. I walk in confidence that that's done, and I'm too busy planting other things. Question: in your own experience, have you found a reaction within yourself that tells you when you have done the imaging process sufficiently to bring into reality that which you have done? Answer: well, I tell you that. Did you hear the question? When you've done it, is there something within you that tells you you really have done it, and therefore it will come to pass? In my own case, it's a sense of relief. It's a creative act, and this is a sense of relief. But beyond that moment of relief, you can't continue in the act. It's something within you. In fact, I would suggest to anyone, try it and fall asleep in the act. Just put yourself into it. And then if it's only a little nap of, say, 1 minute, a few seconds, so you could drop it, it's the dropping of it. If you hold on to it still thinking, well, did I do it? Then you didn't do it. So you get into a state and all of a sudden you fall asleep. You may find yourself waking with a huge big snore. Others will think, well, what's wrong? Now at that moment you simply drop it. It's something you practice. You just practice it. But it works. I'm telling you, it just will not fail you. Question: you get sort of bored with it if you don't fall asleep. Well, you can't do it anymore. Answer: well, I don't use the word boredom with it. Can you put yourself into a mood, a receptive mood, where instead of being a petition, as people think it is, it's communion with self? As you are told in the Psalms, commune with our own heart upon your bed and be still. Psalm 4:4. So I'm communing with self because I can't turn to another asking the other to help me. You get to the point that you just can't do it, that you cannot ask another. You cannot turn to any being, whether it be your ideal of Jesus, or your ideal of this state, or your ideal of something else. You can't. It's all communion with self. You're told that in the 4th Psalm, be still, all right, then commune with your own heart upon your bed. Well now, what would the feeling be like? Just what would it be like? Catch the mood and then try to sleep. Question: when you do it over again, haven't you had the experience of boredom? Answer: boredom. I presume I've been bored. Certainly, I've been bored. Question: the first time around it was exhilarating. You get such a feeling, and then you go over it the next night or day, and that for some reason. Answer: no, well, I don't do it beyond the first. I don't plant the seed over and over. No, I just do it once. When I do it, I do it. And then I know I've done it. I have a memory, so I know I did it. So if I did it, the thing is done. Now, some seeds will come up overnight. Other seeds will take a year. Other seeds a different length of time. We know in our animal life, a little child comes into the world at the end of 9 months after pregnancy. Well, a horse takes 12 months, the sheep takes 5 months, a chicken takes 21 days. So there are different intervals. As you plant something, You always have a time interval for it to mature in the world. Question. Your books are confusing because you said night after night you went to sleep thinking of something lovely. Answer. If I am telling the story that someone else told me, I must tell it in their language without altering it to fit a certain pattern. So in The Law and the Promise, I told 40 case histories, and not one was my own. I told my own in other books. Therefore, if someone writes me a letter, I can't modify or change that letter because I told them I would not change it, but that I would conceal their identity by using only the initials. So the 40 letters that I received, in fact, I've received hundreds, and from the hundreds I picked out 40, using only the initials of those who wrote them, and I didn't add one word or change anything from the letter that I received, because that's the way it came to me. If I tell the story as I should have told it, I think I did say, this is how this one did it. If I add a little poem to it, just to lift it somewhat, not in the body of the letter, but either preceding or following the letter. But I told the letter just as I received it. I did not in any way change it in The Law and the Promise. Question. Are there limits to imagining self-imposed? For example, in a move one might make to a different locale, you know very little about the locale, and it's difficult to imagine much about it in terms of what you know of Barbados and your return there. When you start imagining this scene in the locale where you will be when you feel you are limited, are these self-imposed? Answer. The Bible places no limit on the power of imagination. Listen to the words carefully. Whatever you desire, when you pray, believe that you have received it, and you will. The 11th chapter, the 24th verse of the book of Mark. There is no limit placed upon that promise, none whatsoever. If you can believe it, well then, it's done. It promises it will be done. Man places the limit because I know no one to whom I could turn to feel that I have $100,000. I have no power to leave it to you. I have no friend that I think wealthy enough to put me in his will who had that sort of money. And how could I ever get $100,000? So, in other words, he says no to what he wants, but there is no limit placed upon principle. Man places the limit, yet everyone in the world that has reached any point, almost everyone at birth had nothing, and no one would have put a dime on a bet that he would ever become something. So here, we have it before us every day, but we didn't know about that. We know now. But look, how many? Choa. We always try to find something to justify our own limitations, but the limit is placed by us. Question. How can you imagine on something that is completely unknown to you? Answer. If it's unknown, then you wouldn't think of it. Question. Say a move to Chicago, and you've never been there and know nothing about it. Where do you go from here? Answer. Well, if Chicago is 2,000 miles from here, and it's east of us, if I stood here now and adjust myself to an area that I would say is Chicago, I would think of a city I know well, Los Angeles, and see it 2,000 miles to the west of me. If Los Angeles is 2,000 miles to the southwest of where I'm standing, then I must be in Chicago. Good night.